It's good to be back. Once a year, huh? Until I look in the mirror and say, don't go out anymore. You're complete. Or Carolyn says, you're complete. I want to say that visiting ministers don't come unless you have the blessing of the in-resident ministry. So I want to thank Kent Doss. And so many other people. I think Melissa and I got to know one a little bit up at the Bentonville camp, singing in the choir up there. You got to find not only pianist, but choral director. And and I want you to know, it wasn't too long ago that we moved from the funeral home to here, right? And it won't be long before you move from here to your next location. And so I know there are financial, spiritual, social, political, all kinds of roadblocks, but you shall prevail and find a home that's sufficiently right for your congregation of all ages. We found this place. And you found another place, and you're going to, next time I'm here, I'll be there with you at that site. I'm going to stay around. I'm not going anyplace. No potluck today, huh? Yeah. So I'll be around. I brought some books from San Diego up here. I want to go home lighter. And but I'll be here to greet anyone for as long as you wish to greet me and share some of your life updates as well. And yeah, this is my 50th anniversary in ministry. When I started out, I really started out when I was about 9 or 10 in the kitchen when my mom said, Tommy, and in those days, my brother and I and my dad, we didn't go into the kitchen that much. And now our son works the kitchen, but in those days, you took out the trash and it was a different reality. And she called me into the kitchen. She said, Tommy, I think there's a job with your name on it. And so it has been. And so it will be all my days and nights. Some shape of ministry, whether singing in nursing homes or volunteering at the homeless center or mentoring children at risk or going out on the road. It's ministry. And you know what that's about because you embody ministry as well. And so in terms of the theme today, what do I, after 50 years in ministry, how do I capture the heart of our Unitarian Universalist faith? You can't capture it, but how do I salute it? How do I point towards it in my own way? And maybe there'll be some tips here for you as you scramble to share what it is that you hold dear. The key to numerical and spiritual growth at Tapestry, and I am interested in your growing, not merely swelling, is going to bank upon sufficient numbers of you standing tall and shouting from the housetops or whispering among friends and associates, hey, look at what I found at Tapestry. I found meaning and fellowship and service and life abundant. And I invite you as a friend or associate or neighbor to come and see with your own eyes and hear with your own ears Tapestry's good news. You see, it's crucial, my friends, my fellow Tapestrians, to dare to become low-key evangelists. For we live in a religiously and morally partisan culture. You have to take sides. You cannot remain neutral or be a bystander or a spectator. We need to enter the moral and spiritual fray. As I asked you today, I've asked you over the years, if you were on trial for being a Tapestry partisan and all that it stood for since 1975, would there be enough evidence to convict you? Now, it may come as a surprise, But the word evangel isn't owned by the evangelicals of the world. Evangel simply means good news. And good news surely dwells at the core of our legacy and mission here. So your shining light needs to emerge from underneath the proverbial bushel. Never forget that the world of South Orange County hankers for life-affirming news rather than news beset with fear and judgment. For you and I as Unitarian Universalists belong to the heritage of Isaiah, who wrote in the Hebrew Scriptures, Yahweh has anointed me to bring good tidings to the afflicted. Yahweh has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to those who are bound, and to comfort all who mourn. We do not commit ourselves to bringing good tidings to all who are afflicted, do we not? Is that not our message? Do we not aspire to live lives of liberation, freeing ourselves and others from all sorts of slaveries of mind and body and heart and soul? At our best, you bet we do. We belong to the living tradition of bearers of good news, wondrous news, liberating news, hopeful news. Mortimer Arias, a Methodist bishop in Bolivia, was visiting a congregation in an extremely poor part of a Bolivian inner city where people were starving. And on Sunday morning, he presided at the communion table, and the congregation was singing a joyful hymn, and the table was spread with an embroidered cloth, and on it stood a chalice and a loaf of bread. And just as the hymn was ending, a small boy slipped through the open doors at the back of the parish, a child of the streets, dirty and thin. And he raced up the center aisle to the communion table, and he grabbed the sacramental bread, and he began to eat it. Hey, what are you doing? The bishop cried out. And the child stopped eating. Then he stared at the bishop, and he said with a face full of utter joy, well, they told me there was bread in the church, so I came to get me some. And a little child shall lead us toward our mission. The hurting of humanity always force the issue, don't they? That's the telling question. Does our tapestry gospel offer real spiritual and material nourishment to young and old alike, all who go hungering and happen upon us? Does our Unitarian Universalist outposts in South Orange County furnish nutritious bread for the body and the spirit? Can you get fed here and then be moved enough to feed others? You know what? After 50 years, I confess I'm tired of our Unitarian Universalist gospel, our good news, being hidden and being misinterpreted and being trivialized. I'm weary of people confusing us with unification, the Moonies, or unity, an essentially good place but metaphysical enterprise, more time in the heavens and less on the earth, or universal life, a mail order ministry. It's time to let our true light, our authentic good news shine, then shine some more. Is it too much to ask the world to start to recognize, if not appreciate us for who we really are? I mean, being agreed with isn't a fundamental human need, but being understood is. And it's up to us to clarify our good news sufficiently that people will understand who we are and what we're about. There's more that disturbs me. Outsiders not knowing who we are, what we stand for, or where we're located is bad enough, but too many insiders, our own partisans, are prone to dismiss our chosen religion as well. Self-insults really sting. There are card-carrying Unitarian Universalists scattered throughout our 1,000-plus congregations in North America who consider themselves political action centers with a side order of spirituality. That won't do. Or like-minded social guilds or clubs. That won't do. My fellow religious progressives, those assessments are both erroneous and debasing. The undeniable truth is that we've cast our lot, for better or for worse, with a bona fide religious enterprise, historically rooted, theologically rich, ethically courageous, unabashedly spiritual, comprised of mystical activists, compassionate change agents. We belong to an honorable, worthy heritage despite our ample warts. And you and I know our warts better than anybody outside will ever know. But if we're hesitant to promote ourselves as a genuine religion, why should we expect a befuddled world to do so? I'm convinced, and the older I get, the more I'm a part of this clan, that the world would be better off if there were more practicing Unitarian Universalists. I said practicing, not espousing, not worshiping, incarnating, practicing this afternoon at the tough meeting on Tuesday morning with the relative that you can't get along with at the next holiday. So whether you're a chronic Unitarian Universalist or an utter newbie who happened upon our worship service like that little boy did upon the chalice table in Bolivia, you've chosen today to celebrate in a religious communion that possesses a magnificent gospel. What the Universalists called the larger hope. Wow, do we need that now? A gospel with soulful depth and prophetic stretch. A gospel that can work marvels internally and interpersonally and internationally. But just why are we? Why are we so filled with good news? Because ours is a religion that focuses upon the delights and duties of this world rather than waiting around for benefits in a fanciful realm. Why? Because ours is a religion that commits to saving everyone, not merely our own skins or our own clans. Why? Because ours is a religion that distinguishes between the necessary pangs of conscience and the regrettable paralysis of guilt. Guilt takes you nowhere. Conscience gets you out of bed and out the door and on the road. But there's even more substance. Unitarian Universalism endorses our capacity to be and do good, to make real lasting differences among our earthly days, whether it's 10 years or 95 years. We can make a difference. We can build beloved communities right where we're planted. No moral or political problem exists that can't be thoughtfully engaged. We insist that souls are renewable and society is reformable. Souls are renewable and society is reformable. That's good news. That's stupendous news. And it's inherent in our history and in our ideals. We don't have to manipulate or spin our message. It comes with all who have come before us and who we are and where we're going. But I don't want to fool anybody. I'm a romantic. I'm sappier than I used to be, but I'm not incurable. We don't possess dreamy-eyed news. Ours is a relentlessly realistic religion. We don't naively argue that life's injustices will be eradicated overnight, in a few weeks, or during any regime, or during our lifetimes. We concede that intractable evil dwells within our carefully crafted institutions, the most beautiful and best of them all, as well as within our very own souls. Yet ours remains a religion that summons us to advance step by step by step, maintaining the compassionate talk and walk can grow some corn, as Native Americans are wont to say. We promote a chastened, hopeful gospel in an age that's filled with dealers of gloom and purveyors of bigotry and pushers of sweetness. Choose your side and go forth and embody our good news. Jesus often said, "Be of good cheer." But when he did, the Nazarene never used the Aramaic equivalent of cheerio. Cheerio. And so we avoid the extremes of cynicism and cheerio while spreading a resilient confidence, progress, not perfection. As Libby calls it, being whole with all our flaws. I mean, just look at our name. I know it's a long name and it's a big name and you can't do it very well in the airplane. But if you have some moments with your own soul and with a family member or neighbor with Unitarian Universalist proclivities or an open heart, Unitarianism asserts that the cosmos is unitary. Reality is ultimately interdependent. Divine reality is one. What a blessing for those of us who don't want to travel the spiritual path alone, who covet living in fellowship and in community at every level of existence. Unitarianism also decrees that every unit of life is worthwhile and to be treated as such. Every unit of life. Again, great news. Our chosen faith believes that we earthlings can convert life into a just and joyous journey, every one of us, no matter what has happened to us or that we've generated and caused to happen in our lives. We can turn it around. We're renewable. We can be born again and again and again. Universalism, the door through which I came into our faith, delivers more good news. It envisions an infinite spirit holding every creature in loving embrace, from start to finish, no exceptions. That means the shaggiest, the shadiest creatures in the universe, and yeah, our enemies are all redeemable. The sad truth is that in different moments in history, like now, the dominants have denied the status of soul to entire classes of beings whom they've wanted to control or exclude, be it women, or poor folks, or homosexuals, or religious minorities, or immigrants, or persons of color, or some other embattled group. And we have always, in our better moments, countered by saying, either everyone is worthy to be saved or no one is. We shun no living being. And in recent times, we've even upped the ante by exhorting humanity to treat the beasts of the field and the birds of the sky and the fish of the sea as animated, soulful, with enduring value. I'm moved to share a chant, the words of which come from Rebecca Parker, and the melody from Beth Norton that captures it for me. There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. We rest in that love. The older I get, the less I talk about it, that love, but I sing more about it, and I try to live it out in the streets. Let me give you 3 examples in closing of our good news, while you ponder your own stories of hope and deliverance. My first tale is of a Unitarian Universalist colleague of mine, a minister whose 17-year-old daughter tried to commit suicide. And she failed and was placed in a mental hospital under good care and safety. And a friend of the family from that very congregation learned of the young woman's plight and went to visit. And as she leaned down to hug her friend's daughter, the young woman reached upward, stared at the caring face, and then upon recognizing the flaming chalice worn around her visitor's neck, firmly clutched it as if she was grasping a life-saving relic. Can we appreciate the enormous restorative power contained in our simple and few religious artifacts, as well as incarnated when we show up? This teenager, caught in the throes of despair, was in essence feeling deep support upon the sight of our flaming chalice. I know I'm still loved because my parish actively loves me. No doubt about it, this beleaguered young woman was assisted in her healing by the delivery of our gospel, up close and personal, and eventually she turned her life around because one of us turned up. My second example comes from a friend of mine from First Church who's no longer alive. And it's about the potential of our good news in the public realm. Bruce didn't own a car. So this was after he'd completed his work journey and he was in retirement. He didn't own a car, and he would ride the buses daily to and from functions, as well as to our congregation in San Diego. And he had condensed his own version of Unitarian Universalism into 25 words, then printed it on colorful cards. And during his daily dialogues on the buses and streets of San Diego, when the moment seemed right, Bruce would announce that he's a practicing Unitarian Universalist, or as he put it, a Unitarian Universalist in training. And then he would ask if his new acquaintance might be interested in knowing what he had found that brought him meaning and hope and courage. And when people were curious, Bruce testified to our faith as he knew it in his own heart. And then he might leave them with a card, one of his colorful cards, with information about First Church in the back. Always respectful. He was a silent carrier of our gospel, really. As bold as he was to go out on the buses and the roads, he was really a very shy person. And always respectful, he would engage in what I call low-key evangelism, the best kind. He would deliver our gospel via conversation rather than conversion. And since today is National Grandparents' Day, it gets a day, in our country. it needs a lifetime. Many grandparents that I know are raising their grandchildren. We've got to give them more than an afternoon. But I want to share, it's on my heart now. Carol and I just got back from New York City, the last of 7 grandchildren. When they're 10, as you probably know, I've regaled about it. When they're 10, we work out a covenant of where we want to spend a week together. You know, when you're 10, you hold hands. You don't clamor to have your buddy doesn't need to be there, and the cell phones are put on autopilot or whatever we put them on to quiet them down. Although Zayden, the youngest, there were moments to FaceTime with his mother and father. Went to New York City, and here's a boy who needs all the male mature presences possible. His biological father is on the streets of his hometown. He lives with the new father and our daughter, and there are other men in that kind of expanded fort there. And I just wanted to be a part of it too. And what a sweet kid. He reminds me so much of my brother. He looks like my brother. He walks like my brother. I didn't want to tell him that. That would have been too much. I just wanted to be with him. And we're back. But I wanted to tell a little bit about Owen, our grandson in San Diego, who's now going to be 15 in a month and a half. And Owen was about 7 or so, and this is how he got to the heart of our Unitarian Universalist gospel in his own way. He's an artist, but he's also a theologian in training. He goes deep, and you don't want to miss it. And he said, "Grandma, does the earth talk?" And Carolyn wisely retorted, "Well, what do you think, sweetie?" "Well, I think it does. When we hurt the earth, it sneezes. And when we're good to the earth, it's happy and smiles." And thus stateth little Owen's gospel. For in clumsily yet courageously loving self and neighbor and earth, our job is really nothing more and nothing less than igniting more smiles and sneezes. So, it's kind of straightforward what I'm sharing today. I'm urging you to claim our gospel, to celebrate our gospel, to clarify our gospel, to cherish our gospel, to convey our gospel, our good news, to welcome yet one more soul, forge yet one more compassionate connection, take one more just and merciful stand. Dare to wear a chalice or evangelize face to face. Whenever we listen carefully without recoiling to an angry youth in our neighborhood or sustain a lover's quarrel with our government on specific issues, whenever we reconcile with an estranged relative or spend real time with a child at risk, and I don't even use that phrase anymore because children and youth are all at risk. Whenever we venture anti-oppression work that's beyond our comfort zone or join an interfaith group to appreciate the deeper meanings of their chosen gospel. Our light shines whenever we take a walk with a newly greeted elder in a nearby nursing home or boldly green our little corner of the earth. Our light shines whenever we make sure our discretionary money goes to causes and people who need it, as well as juggle spiritual disciplines of private meditation and civic protest. And oh yes, whenever anyone misinterprets or devalues our chosen faith and our presence, we need to call them on it, reminding them where we've come from and what we really stand for, and that we're unashamedly progressive and unapologetically Unitarian Universalists. And so I urge you to leave the sanctuary this morning with fresh resolve to sing our gospel, spread our gospel, and resemble our gospel, doing your fair share, your own chosen fair share, to ensure that it shines and shines and then shines some more from this day forward and forevermore.